Hello and welcome. If you're joining us on YouTube Live and if you're listening to us later, you're also equally welcome. I'm Trev Downey here in my field in beautiful rural Ireland and reconnected to the internet. So it means we can do an emergency, indulgent pre-Christmas transfer show. I missed the one with young Pescott standing in for me when there was quite a lot of news, and fair play to Ben. Good job. Nice for him and Dave to be able to get that out there to you. We have a few other things, and we obviously have our own opinions. So let's welcome our transfer guru back to your ears and eyes. Dave, how you doing?
Trev, after a while not seeing you, it reminds me of the resurrection of Jesus, where on the third day, he revealed himself to the apostles. And this is one of the bits that they did leave out the Bible. Young Luke turned around and went, "Where the fuck have you been, Shagger? They've left me with the work experience, lad, to resolve everything." That's what they gave me, young Peck. I'm pretty sure we had him out past his bedtime, but you are back. We have got stuff to talk about, so we'll swing into gear like we normally do, eh?
We certainly will, and for the record, no blue wicket here, just a good old cup of tea. So it's all good, and no. We tease. It's great to have Ben involved on the last one. And I appreciate him standing in for me when I couldn't do it. We have a few bits, Dave. I mean, listen, we're not going to go and excite people saying that we've got loads of new news because, there's not a load of new news, but there are a few things knocking around. And the one that's really interesting that people have been getting a little bit excited about, and I don't know if it feeds into Trent Alexander-Arnold notions as well, but it's this Davies chat. Now, the journo in question, what I'm not sure what we think of that, but it seems to me, and this is before I even read your note, that there might be just one of these things here. Like Hendrik and I were talking the last day about how Liverpool has turned into, thankfully for us, a destination club, which means if you start rumoring yourself as being linked to Liverpool, people go, "Ooh, really? Liverpool want you," because they're quite rigorous in their recruiting service and they are very good and they're top of all the leagues. Is there a bit of this going on with the Davies stuff? Talk to us about this, where it originated, who's being responsible for sort of pulling it out there continually.
Yeah, we never try and be too derogatory, shall we say, about where it's come from. But asking around like we normally do, harassing, haranguing, trying to get info on this. The source was Christian Falk, FC Bayern. I'm sure everyone knows him. If you follow him, he said that. And this is where I think people pounced on something as part of a manifestation, Trev, I'm going to be honest. Because in his article, he said that nothing's agreed with Real Madrid, nothing's agreed with Bayern. Liverpool could pounce. So he didn't say Liverpool have definitely they're waiting and everything, but they know what they're doing, these people. They know he's one of those players that a lot of fans would like. And, a sexy name, left back, rapid. The left back situation at the moment. We all want a left back. So it's an easy thing to make that step. Going to be completely honest on this, Trev. Asking around, pretty much no. This is a name that pretty much was shot down. I think, just to be clear on that as well, the info we got was Liverpool are fully aware of Alphonso Davies' situation at Bayern, but he's in talks with Bayern. Obviously, his agent's very aware that Real Madrid are there at the same time. This huddle of, let's just chuck Liverpool in there just to see if we can nudge Real Madrid, nudge Bayern for this renewal. And also the info we got was the wages he won. Forget it. That was the info we got, in all honesty. So I think we're putting the chances of this, I'm not saying non-existent, but it's going to be absolutely jaw-droppingly shocked if anything happens on this one for us.
It had that feel of, let's just use the Liverpool name here and see what we can do with our deal for our player. But the reason I mentioned Trent, obviously, when I was talking about left back, was we have the fella here who is clearly demanding a lot of money from Liverpool. And that's why I brought him up, because maybe if we're going to recruit, if we have to recruit, maybe we're going to have a big splashy one, and not such a big splashy one. And if you're going to replace Trent Alexander-Arnold with the guy who's currently the understudy, that won't appease people, and we will still obviously need another one. And it wouldn't make a whole lot of sense, would it, Dave, for that other one to be another up-and-comer? It would have to be a kind of established guy, which made it even more unlikely in my mind that we go and spend big on a left back when we actually have two guys there who actually still want to be at the club and are making no bones about that. So it's a bit of a weird one. However, we'll come back to the transfer talk, or sorry, the contract talk later on, if you're okay with that. I know I'm sure you're very annoyed with the topic. I spent an hour speaking to the lads on Raw last night about this ridiculous situation we have with Mo Salah when he's just performing the hell out of a season, and we're still in a situation where we don't know if he's going to be playing for the club next season. It's bananas. However, we are where we are, and we do have another couple of links. Now, again, just to touch back onto what you went through with Ben on the previous show, there are names that keep getting mentioned. Yeah. There are a couple of fullbacks. There are one or two strikers that are being mentioned, but they're more sort of, well, wouldn't it be lovely if we could sign Victor Gyökeres, for example? But it just feels a little bit pie in the sky. And I noticed that none of those names are featuring in your agenda for us this evening, because none of them are realistic, it appears, certainly currently. The one that people have heard a lot, and I'll be honest with you, man, I think are quite underwhelmed with, is this Cherki talk, because a few people have brought it out, including our boy with the catchphrase. Let's talk about this Cherki thing. Is there anything to it in your opinion? Again, the same thing. Where did it originate? And how likely do you feel it is, given what you've heard?
It's probably best to sort of separate what we've heard and obviously what my opinion as well. So a bit, and I know we ran it on Anfield Index recently there. It does come from good old Fabrizio, but a lot of the suggestions asking around Liverpool side, and I want to be crystal clear in how I put this. Liverpool are aware of Cherki. They're aware of his sort of talent, his flair, all the things that, and I'm no Ligon watcher, I'm not going to pretend that for 1 second, but he's appreciated by the club. There's no two ways about that. Various sources said that. Even David Lynch mentioned it on Media Matters today. Liverpool are very aware they have an interest in the player. But as we say in the summer, Trev, Liverpool are like wives carpet shopping. They look at a lot of samples. They look at a lot of players. Interest doesn't really mean too much. And also, part of that interest, Trev, it's really important to say this, was based on the fact that Lyon have had are in well-known financial trouble, despite what the owner's trying to deny. So it's one of those quote-unquote opportunistic ones that Liverpool were potentially looking at, as in, can we get this player for a bargain? And there's no suggestion that's the case. And even the quotes coming out recently suggest that Lyon are looking for 25 million, something like that, or around that figure. That is just not going to fly for Liverpool. And then the other bit, and just my honest opinion, Trev, where's he going to play? Like, I know people are going to scream, he's better than Harvey Elliott, blah, blah, blah. Are we going to invest at this time money for someone who's probably not going to be a starter when we have got even players like Elliott, Jota, Nunes? And I'm not trying to get into the debate of who should, etc. What I'm saying is, where does this guy's minutes, where does this take place in that sense? There's just so many reasons. And then, by the way, on top of that, did manage to reach out to a French journal and got something back. There's questions in the homeland about Cherki's attitude quite a bit as well. Really? Now, how our dressing room works, Trev. Yeah, how it works in terms of the standards we set and all that. And Helia Matthias makes a great point there. What are we going to do with another attacking midfielder? How about buying something we need, which is my thoughts exactly. So Liverpool have an interest in this player, yes. The chances of him coming to Anfield right now, it's not impossible, but it's remotely small. And in January, I'd say it's minuscule, let's be honest.
Yeah, it was one of those ones, again, I found baffling, but just because it was reported from a few places, we just do people the courtesy of talking about how likely it is. Because I think, it's very easy. You can, if you're a bit distracted or you're very busy with your work life or whatever, you check in here and you hear the rumors, you get them filtered back through us. And we just like to be as realistic as we can about them. And that one never made a whole lot of sense to me. No. Although I have to say, Dell in the comments, Liverpool want the Christmas Cherki. Dude, that's... I mean, you know what? So honestly, there's a lot of talk about from what I can see, and I do try to keep an eye on this, but obviously we have a primary purpose here, folks. So apologies if I miss things, and thanks to people who are saying hello. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. What makes sense, Dave? Can we just pause it here for a second? What makes sense is that we address the areas that we needed to address in the summer, because they are still the areas we need to address. There needs to be some cover on that left side of the defense, whether it's a sort of hybrid centre half full back type, or just a really good full back type who we can rely on, who can come in as a first teamer. And that's not to denigrate the two lads we have there. They're great lads, and Robbo had a great game yesterday, but we've seen that it doesn't happen on a repeated basis. We also, I think it's clearly obvious, need that holding midfielder. We have a lovely blend of lads who work really hard together and do great stuff in combo and in concert. And we have a guy who's learning on the job to become perhaps ultimately a very, very good defensive midfielder, but probably not that sort of monster that you want in there, that destroyer type, or at least the foot-in merchant that Fabinho was, the guy who could drift across and block passing lanes and intercept things in the way that you need. That's the other massive area we wanted to spend 100 million on. And it's appearing increasingly likely that one of Darwin or Jota will be on his bike. There's another area that we need to fix. Do we need to fix any of those, do you believe, urgently this window? Because you've kind of thrown it out there in the title of this show that we need to act. Do you mean by that, let's get these freaking contracts done? Let's get these best players in the world in their positions sorted? Or do you mean we need supplementals? Because I personally, I'm a why not both guy.
Contracts for the elite three, recruits, put your hands together, Trev. That's exactly what we need in terms of, if you get these three done, and obviously we'll talk about contracts later, that just gives almost a groundswell, doesn't it, of good feel, like it's really on, harmony within the camp, all those types of things. So yeah, absolutely. And by the way, we talked about this in the summer, hadn't we? This has been on the docket for Hughes, Edward, whoever you want to call it, for some time. That's not changed. These need to get done. The recruitment bit in January, we said this like when we started one at sort of late November. We are missing a massive trick, and we are taking a massive risk if we do not reinforce in January. We said before then, you always reinforce from a position of strength. That's the time to buy, when you're in positions like this. So you get the right player, you make sure you've got the cover. And people will debate that, be it left back, like you say, the holding midfielder, and people might have different on which one's more important. I just think one of those at least moves the needle. I think it really does. It gives everyone a boost, and it just sort of fortifies us, especially that left back position, like you, in a sense of, we've got someone there now. We're more confident around that. And like you said, Robbo can have good games. That, we can't pretend he's not had good games this season. But at the same time, if we're deadly honest, there's been bad games as well, and you do worry about, can he now do it with his legs a couple of times a week? Only a fool disagrees with that. That's not denigrating a legend. That's not bringing him down. He's been an unbelievable player, world class in his pomp. But you have to look at what you're seeing now. Tsimikas as well. I think almost for me, we're now in the position that Tsimikas might be the better left-back option, but just because of how far Robbo's fallen, I think Tsimikas has done okay in Slot's system, but he's kind of levelled out more than anything. A left-back, especially for me, just moves the needle now. And God, heaven forbid we should talk about two signings, because a left-back and a midfielder, the needle's going swish like up and down the Richter scale, isn't it? Like a nutter type of thing. So, yeah, for me, that is the ultimate thing that I've got sort of brewing around. But also, Trev, if you do not in January and something bad happens, touch wood, injury-wise, or we start to look a little thin, there are zero excuses for us. There's nothing we can turn around and say like, oh, like, no, you passed up the chance to do business in January. It was there for you. You're going into the new year top of the table, top of the Champions League. That was the time when, by the way, you knew you wanted to do business in summer as well, but you didn't do it because Mountain Wanker turned it down, etc., and wanted to stay with his PowerPoints and everything. So you had the chance. Why wouldn't you do it again in January? And I know people are going to be crying that, oh, the chances, the opportunities, etc. I'm not saying it's an easy time to do business. There's not always a great time to do business, but there's the perfect time to do business is at the top. You fortify from strength. So, yeah, if we don't do anything, no excuses, Trev.
I've said it, and people are probably sick of me saying it, but I honestly don't care, because the more times it gets said, and this is a new platform for us, so maybe people who only watch YouTube will be hearing this for the first time, but repeatedly, season on season here, especially towards the tail end of Kloppo's reign, we've been saying it seems a bit negligent not to do something here. Like you said earlier on, you strengthen from a position of strength. You reinforce from a position of strength. That's what Liverpool teams of old did. That's what the dominant Manchester United team did. And repeatedly, we didn't do it. Repeatedly, we took a flyer on our midfield or our defense or whatever it happened to be when clearly something was needed. Now, it is beyond negligent if we allow this guy who has made such an impact to go unsupported. When there is a league on the table for us to win, that's a huge... Listen to that sentence, by the way. The Premier League is on the table for us to win. The Champions League is there for us to win. Now, if you do not support a guy in summer, you give him a bargain basement. This guy used to be cool, but now he's a bit broken. Do you want him for 10 million? Okay, cool. Yeah, we'll have that. But that's that opportunistic nonsense you were talking about before. That's not a proper signing. If you allow the next window to go past, I'm sorry, but there's something very wrong there. And don't hold the contracts up to me as something that you've done. No, that's not enhancing the squad, because all the contracts thing means is somebody might go missing. That's all that means to us as fans. So yeah, it seems absolutely daft to me. Somebody's mentioned, a couple of people have mentioned in the chat just before we let this go, about the pursuit of the quadruple and the concept of how well we're doing in the League Cup and all the rest of it. Dave, you and I are both in the same boat in this. We've seen that process fall apart in front of our eyes twice. And where a potential quad was available twice, we ended up with 3 cups in total. And honestly, the day out merchants, I get it. I really get it. Liverpool exists to win trophies. I used to be the guy who said that. Liverpool exists to win the big trophies for sure. And when they're available, Dave, let's not dilute. Let's not dilute our efforts. I want rigorous focus. I feel Arne Slot has that. I just really hope that there's a quiet support of this man when we come into what's coming up in this window. The big one that we all wanted in the summer was, as you said, Mountain Nonce, old Zubimendi. And he has done a job on any hopes that anyone had for getting him in. There was already rumours about him going to City. There was rumours about him going elsewhere. But it looks to me as if from what he said himself, now I'd like you to walk us through it, because I'll be honest with you, every time I see a photo of that guy now, I just go, I can't. If you don't want to play for Liverpool, that's fine. Good lad. I wish you well, but don't be. I'm not wasting my time with a lad like that. So what is the current state of play? What was it that he said? How have you interpreted it?
Yeah, he did an interview. It came out not that long ago with, I'm not even going to try and pronounce the guy's name, but a local Sociedad journal, and very much said that, the Liverpool move caught him on the hop. It was by surprise. Like, no, it wasn't. And he had a decision to make, and he thought about it. And also, opportunities can come round again, which I also disagree with. But I'm going to be honest. I'll probably say some things now which I might well be deleting in the summer when something happens to see realistically. But I'm like you, Trev. This guy has made one call not to play for Liverpool. So I already have that against him and his mountains and all that. You look at what Sociedad have done. They ain't tearing up no trees, that's being clear. You then think in January, because of how Sociedad are doing, and all that, could you be looking? And he kind of shoots that down himself. And even today, you can say that Alabe, I think it's pronounced, the Sociedad sporting director, says, yeah, he's got a release clause, but from how he's behaving, everything we hear, they don't predict any quote unquote scares in January for Zubimendi to leave. Now, I'm kind of the opinion that we've got world stars in the likes of Salah and Van Dijk that want to play for Liverpool, are desperate to play for Liverpool. We've signed players that have clearly wanted to come to the club, have talked about it. Here is a guy that will be 26 in the summer, so he's not in the young bracket like Mum. Here is a guy that has turned us down, just to be clear already, turned down others like Bayern, Arsenal, or all that type of thing. So even if you wait until the summer, there's no guarantee, is there, Trev? I do genuinely suspect, and this is my honest opinion on this, Liverpool are still interested in him. And if they can get him in the summer, this is a player that we know, Slot, Hughes, whatever you want to call them, like. We know that. This is a player that they like and a player that they identified. He is also the only player that we know that's the case with definitively, who's not yet a Liverpool player. So with that in mind, I do suspect that if there's a chance in the summer, it will be revisited. It's not going to happen January, but let me be honest on my take on this, Trev. Fuck him. Do you know what I mean? If you don't want to play for Liverpool, like in this and everything like that, also, I can quite happily move on to someone else right now. And if we can get someone else who in for January, who, as we say, can move the needle, maybe even a bit younger, and it's not about getting into names. That is just my honest opinion. I am not as high on Zubimendi now as I think a lot of people and I was in the summer. If you don't want to play for Liverpool, it is what it is. To me, I don't want to say we're waiting until the summer for this guy, so we'll keep our powder dry in January. No. Do one in January, title, win one of the big prizes, and move on from Zubimendi. However, I wouldn't be surprised if this gets revisited in the summer, despite what we want or think.
Have you been part of a conversation where people say January signings are risky? And then you realize that the person you're talking to is a Liverpool fan who has lived through two of the most influential footballers to ever play for the club in the modern era, in Luis Suarez and Virgil van Dijk, who are January signings, lads. Doesn't make any sense. It's a nonsense. The only reason people say it's a risk is if you're a panic buying situation. Our lot are not going to panic buy. Our lot chance their arm on a 10 million signing during the summer with probably no real downside. They can offload them for the same amount and it's going to be fine if that happens. These guys don't take chances. They're not going to risk anything. So it's an absolute nonsense. I'm going to throw two names at you. I've already mentioned Gyökeres. As far as I can see, that's literal pie in the sky and wishful thinking. And as you'd often say, people sort of manifesting, right? I think that's all it is. Whereas I think he would be absolutely ideal for us, from what I can see. He seems to be absolutely the right man for the job for us. The other one that was mentioned a lot was Milos Kerkiz from Bournemouth, who would address that left back situation. And again, is that manifestation? Because I have read a few things. Granted, no sources were ever really mentioned of note. Have you heard anything about this? Either of them two?
Kerkiz, Yes, by Liverpool, very much on the radar. Chances of a January move, again, minuscule. Bournemouth only really have him at left back. They are looking at Soler, as we mentioned on the last show, a young player we've looked at. But they're not going to give up Kerkiz to then bring a young player from Argentina who's got no inexperience, especially, I don't know, people are forgetting Bournemouth are 5th in the league as well. They're having a very good season. They're not going to want to rock their boat too much. So the only way something like that happens in January is if Liverpool will stick stupid money on the table, like Kerkiz, right? Which they're not going to while they've got 2 left backs at this time. So Kerkiz, yes, all the info we have, very much of interest to Liverpool, very much being monitored. I would very much keep an eye on that one in the summer, but not for Jan.
All fair. Let's wrap up the Liverpool section of the show. Hate saying that, but we have to, because we're not going to bullshit you either. We're not going to just sit here and have a big conversation about Victor Gyökeres, because we would love that to happen. This is the transfer show, and we talk about potential transfers. So it's not real in any way, shape, or form. We're not going to talk about it. That's for a different type of platform. We do have a couple of concrete things to talk about. One is the loan situation, and 2 is the contract thing. Now, again, I'm going to leave that to last, because I feel like you might have some sort of, I know a few of us have inklings, but I think you might have something a little bit more solid than that in terms of what you're hearing on the grapevine. But can we start with the loan situation? Because that is going to have an effect. Stefan Bajcetic is having a very sort of a mixed bag of a time, and he's managerless now, and the guy who backed him and wanted him is gone. Kate Gordon, McConnell, would Jaden Danns, now that he's fit again, be on the way out? Is Tyler Morton now a first-team member, or is he gonna maybe take a hike again come January? What are the things you're hearing about? Any concrete ideas about loans for Liverpool players or returns from loans for Liverpool players?
Yeah, maybe not to people's enjoyment, but quite a bit around loans, to be honest. So the first one is Tyler Morton. There is, and a few articles we're doing the round, that Sheffield United, the Championship toppers, they've got a bit of money now, looking to get this. And yeah, the info we've got is not just sort of top Championship sides. A lot of Premier League sides are interested in Tyler Morton, but all the info, Trev, it's all about a loan. There's nothing that suggests there's permanent dosh on the table there, being completely honest, which you wonder. I mean, I suspect, this is my guess, by the way, I don't know this, I'd suspect Tyler Morton wants to play football. He's shone at Championship teams. He's now playing, 3 games a season, I think he's playing for us in the Carabao, that type of thing. Almost, if you're his agent, you're saying like, kid, you need to get your career back on track type of thing. And I know a few were mentioning there, Leverkusen in the summer, yeah, but not hearing there's anything about that being resurrected, or it's all Championship, Premier League clubs, but it's loans we're hearing for Tyler Morton. Kate Gordon's a weird one. Doesn't seem to be any mechanism in this contract or the loan offer with Norwich for him to cancel that, return, but there is a lot of suggestions that Liverpool might do that because it's not really worked for him at Norwich. Now, again, with Cade Gordon, had horrific injuries, growing problems, growing pains, that type of thing. But from all the academy sources, still really high thought of, still really think there's a player there, there's real ability, that kid they bought from Derby. So there is a sort of suspicion, if maybe the right word, they will look, if they're not convinced he's going to get minutes with Norwich, bring him back. And even if it's a lower Championship or somewhere else, where can you place Cade Gordon to get him minutes? So that's the latest update on that. Bajcetic, there is no recall mechanism. There's nothing in the contract at the moment for him to come back. So if Liverpool do want to do that with Salzburg, the Red Bull Group, and their old mate Jurgen's set to be there soon, isn't he, as well? Although the less than popular Pep Linders, shall we say, has departed. So it's a bit of guessing with Badge, but there is no mechanism is the info that we have for Badge to be recalled. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that one. McConnell, Trev, offers galore for this kid on loan. James McConnell apparently has got a ton of clubs, Championship, League One, wanting to take on loan. Very highly thought of at the academy. They honestly say, like, his determination is absolutely top notch. And to be fair, he came on the other day in the Carabao, didn't he, against Southampton? Did quite well, got a bit about him. You could see him having, even if it's not at Liverpool, and I don't know what it will be, a good career as a footballer. He's got a bit about him, you know, McConnell, that way. So you can understand why there's a lot wanting to do it. The only weird one, Jayden Danns. Absolutely nothing can get on this. And last summer, it was clear that before his injury, he might well have gone to Plymouth. And he's looked good. There's a lot of people got high hopes for this kid. I'm not saying it's not going to happen, but genuinely, as hey, we always tell you if we get nothing on it as well, we're not going to BS you, as Trev said. Genuinely got nothing on Jayden Danns making a loan move or anything else outside of Liverpool. But yeah, I know it's not what people want to hear, but the bulk of the business this January, if it ain't contracts, it's loan moves.
What worries me about the loan situation is, say, something like that with Danns, or, I mean, I agree with you with McConnell. I think McConnell was one of the ones who last year put his hand up and had this sort of more adult aura about him than his years would suggest. Bobby Clark did really well for us, but McConnell just seemed to have that more sort of that level of maturity. Maybe Clark had a bit more flash about him. McConnell just looked like a solid citizen. I'm not even slightly surprised loads of people want him. And Morton's kind of in the same bracket, if we're being honest. He's just an actual footballer. There's no two ways about it. The loan situation, though, the reason I wanted to just pause it here before we go to the contracts is in the most recent interview, I think it's the most recent interview with Slot, or one of them at least. He's great, right? And I know you do your presser show, so you pick these things apart. But he's really great. And he made a joke, didn't he, about, you know, the idea of being like Chelsea and, hey, it's not working out too badly for them spending a gajillion dollars every day on new players. Basically the Todd Bowley approach of scattergun, buy all the good players. And you and I in the past, because we are the guys we are and we have no interest in doing the club accounts, couldn't give a crap. The directors have always been there to sign the checks as far as I'm concerned. I'm an old Shanklyite in that regard, even though it's a bit before my time. I always have had that opinion. I loved that he said that. I didn't get to see him say it live, so I don't know if he was absolutely taking the piss, but I did also see him say stuff about working with the youngsters that we have. And I'll be honest with you, my heart sank a bit, Dave, because this show is about us getting new players in and talking about those new players. And it just made me feel a little bit, oh God, are we going to the well again? Are we going to rely on the youth? And listen, we want to bring guys through for sure, but I didn't know how to take it. Now, you would have seen it and you would have probably talked about it live. I didn't catch that show. So what did you make of that? And what did you make of the way he was presenting that information? Did you get the feeling that it was a little bit of a, hey, FSG, do something? Or was it just a bit of RNA crack?
Interesting, this one, because someone's going to say, have you seen this, Dave? How do you know? By the way, yes, before anyone says it, it was in the embargo section. But yes, I have seen the footage of how he said it. He delivered it very tongue-in-cheek because he likes jokes. And I like this about Slot. He's an exceptional communicator. We shouldn't underplay that. He does like to have a joke. And I also like the fact, Trev, as we know, he likes to stick it back on the journo's toes a little bit if they ask a question or something foolish. I like that. The one thing I took from it was, from the footage I've seen, very tongue-in-cheek, but he never says anything without purpose, does he? And I do think it was kind of a little bit of, not to dig, but in essence of, don't expect us to be particularly doing anything like that. And if you are going to sort of bring those questions to me, we ain't Chelsea, we ain't Todd Bowley type of thing. You were Liverpool, you know how we work. So, I'll be honest, from what we've seen from him, even in those embargo comments, it just reinforced for me now, if anything does happen in terms of serious first-team players, we're going to be happy, but we're also going to be surprised at the same time.
I'm not okay with that. I'm just not okay with that. It's wild. The thing we know that we need to get done, and the thing that is starting to become very much an issue, because clubs are going to start circling our little patch very quickly. As I've said in numerous pods, do you believe there's a world in which Real Madrid do not want both Virgil van Dijk and Mo Salah as well as Trent Alexander-Arnold? Come on, like, let's not be silly about this. Every club in the world will want those guys, and they walk into the team, by the way. They walk into the team. So what are we hearing in relation to the big three contract issues, and what's happening with some of the other contract issues, like Diaz, who's due a payday, like people like Jota, who are coming close on their next, let's do this, or let's, get out of here. What are we hearing around the contract situation in terms of anything, even vaguely positive, with the big guys, and any details around some of the other areas that we haven't touched on recently?
I'll tell you what, Trev, and I'll tell you what, viewers, listeners, whoever you are, we'll play a couple of clips from this because I think it's interesting, a couple of things that have been clocked. So the first one, which I thought was absolutely hilarious, just in case anyone clocked it before the game, Diogo Jota talking about Secret Santa again. So it's just a short one, but it's a bit of joviality to
Okay,
it.
well, you have to try and get him in the Christmas spirit.
What would I buy Trent?
What does he need?
A paper.
A paper?
And a pen, sorry.
Oh, a pen.
So he can sign his contract.
Oh, nice. Love that.
So I did enjoy that a little bit because it tells me it's not like a stressed atmosphere in the change room, this, Trev, that, the players are probably, you wouldn't be surprised if they're having a few barbs or joking around, a bit of crap with each other, as they say. So I didn't mind that. Some people jumped on it, but I thought, no, that's absolute. Now, this bit, people got obsessed with the Carragher-Redknapp debate over Trent, legacy, and everything like that. And obviously, it's been all about Trent for the last few days. I completely get that. But it's this snippet, or this segment, if you want to call it specifically, I just want to play it and come back to. So just have a listen to this bit, just about 50 seconds or so.
I just
sure Liverpool fans do as well.
I do. I really do.
There might not be the money there.
Great for our league.
Talking about
I've also got a lot of respect for somebody if they want to go and try a different culture. I think good luck.
Who's your one, Jamie?
I'd probably say Van Dijk, but I'm pretty much certain Van Dijk and Salah will stay. The one worry is Trent because of the situation he finds himself in. But I'm certain the other two will sign.
Jamie Carragher, Trev, saying he's pretty certain the other two will sign. Which naturally brings, because we're talking about the big three. So like everyone in the world who can get any information, everyone is asking at the moment, what have you heard with the big three? Is there any update on VV? All these types of things. And to be honest, even VVD himself said yesterday with kind of a smile, no update. I think we need to steer this carefully. They're going to say that until there is an official update, whether it's to stay or depart. That's what they're going to say. They're not going to give you people it's close. I'm just finalising my terms for my image rights. So, that is not going to come out from the players or from the players' camps at all. That is crucial to say. However, Jamie Carragher said, I'm pretty much certain two of those will sign. Going to be honest, Trev, from sort of, asking around, our info is that Van Dijk is done, pretty much. It's just waiting for, the shirt, the lean. And I know people want that Christmas tree to recreate the signing on Christmas Day. We don't have that. I'd be lying about that. But all the info we have is Van Dijk is done. The other info we've got is Salah is pretty much there as well. It's just haggling over minor details. We're not talking like million miles. It's just minor details. In fact, being honest, and I'm not trying to call ITK, I do not know this for definite that it's going to happen, but the best bit of info we got over the last few days was, don't be surprised if we're seeing announcements, plural, before the 2nd of January. So there you go. So I can't pretend I know we're going to have them together holding baubles, leading against the Christmas tree. The only info that we got over the last few days as updates was VVD pretty much done. The second one, Salah pretty much there. Expect announcement by the 2nd of Jan, which gives me great hope. And it kind of goes back to what we've said previously, Trev, and what we felt when we started this around winter. I think most people would see this as well. You're far more confident on those two than you are with Trent, which we've talked about at length. And that's why there's all the legacy chat and all the things going on. But I am going to now be, from, as we know, we just tell you what we find out. Sometimes, by the way, as well, I always like to tell you, as we have in private chat, how much do we get right that no one gives us credit for, or we pull out? So no one gives us any credit for
Ever.
any of this.
Ever.
Do you know what? Ever. Just a little thing to say there, but that's not trying to whinge. But that is the info we've got. So with that, it's not all three. I appreciate that, but I'm seeing it as a positive, Trev. And also, if two of the dominoes go, you just hope there's that bit going, Trent, the big two are staying. We're top of everything. You're talking about your legacy. Do you want to be Gerrard? Do you want to be McManaman? Pick your column, mate. And sense, hopefully, prevails.
Yeah, I listen, Dell wants us all to relax. He reckons it's all done from the information that he's getting. And Paul there asking, can Liverpool actually afford all three? You know what? Alongside the idea of recruitment, maybe not. And maybe the real problem with the Trent situation is he wants a ridiculous amount of money, which our lot are balking at. And actually, the most likely solution is that that's exactly what the situation is, because he's the youngest. He's wanted by PlayStation FC. He can say that as a bargaining chip. He can also say, hey, lads, I'm a generational talent. When I was speaking to Dave about it recently, Dave was saying, look, you know what? Your centre half and your scoring forward, they are your premium positions.
Yeah.
Right back is not a premium position. However, Trent has turned it into a premium position, so it's a little bit disingenuous to say that he's not hugely important and hasn't been a massive part of everything that's gone right with the club. And we could see him yesterday when he's in full flow. What a weapon he is at right back. But yeah, I think the financial thing is probably at the back of it. It will all come out, Dave, and we'll find out what we find out. We'll take a little bit of solace from the good vibes that are going around currently about the possibility of getting contracts done. And as we move into the last 15 minutes, let's blitz through what's going on across the rest of the Premier League and in Europe. First of all, the Manx not having a good time, man. And Rashford is having a really shitty time. Rashford is being linked, I think, with Saudi. No surprise there, really. And this will all crank up again, especially if the Saudis suddenly discover they have money again, because it went missing for at least a year and a half. But let's talk about the United and Rashford and Saudi rumours. What's to that?
Yeah, I think, and everyone knows now, he's done this interview with Henry Winter, hasn't he? That all of a sudden he was left out the squad and people are like, what's going on? I mean, he clarified it, Rashford in that interview. And then people had, Henry Winter did all the sort of talk shows and sports channels going, well, what did he say? He's like, he said exactly what I put there. Amarim's left him out. He's looking at a new challenge. I mean, it's quite clear that Marcus Rashford wants out of Manchester United. I think it's also quite clear that Ruben Amorim probably wants him out of Old Trafford now as well, that he's looked at his attitude and probably he's thinking, the budget or all this. I mean, there's a couple of things to this as well, Trev. Marcus Rashford, as we're getting from various journals when we're asking about it, is on astronomical wages. Astronomical wages. So anywhere he's going to go to is pretty much going to mean a pay cut, isn't it? Maybe the only place he could go that wouldn't be a pay cut is Saudi for obvious reasons. So maybe that brings it into the mix. The other problem that United have is, if it's not Saudi, who does he go to? Because I keep saying people, we could go to Italy because that's a lesser league and all that, a new change of scene. Who's going to pay his wages in Italy for that amount, Trev? Who in Spain for Rashford is going to take those wages on? Or, and United are trying to move away from this. They will have Sancho on loan at Dortmund and they were paying him, Dortmund were paying £20 a week and his pocket money type of thing. And, United, they're trying to move away from that. They want him off the books because they've also got the PSR issues. I mean, United have got problems galore. They've got PSR issues. The only positive for United fans at the moment is there's been reports today that there is a rat at Old Trafford. There's been various reports. Just to clarify, United fans, that was just Amorim speaking to Bruno Fernandes in training. So do not worry about that. That is just a false report. That is all that is, just to bring a bit of levity to the situation for you. However, they want him gone. And I'm going to be honest, because obviously we love the circus down the road at the East Lancs. I've got a bit of a soft spot for Marcus Rashford, because of what he's done for charity, kids' meals, and all that type of thing. I have got a little bit of a soft spot for him. He also just looks a tortured soul, doesn't he? And all the class of 92 clowns can't help but talk about him every single week. And I mean, I like Rashford, but we're not talking about an elite star here, are we? We're talking about a very good player. We are not talking an elite player. I've never heard a player who's not that level talked about so much. But in simple terms, Amorim wants him out. Rashford's looking for a new challenge. It's all about they make the financials work in January. But there's will there from both sides. So it will be interesting to see what happens.
Oh, I think he'll be on his bike, and I wouldn't be surprised if a few more weren't either, because Ineos have cut their Christmas bonus from £100 to a £40 M&S card for the people who work at the club. There's rumours that Matt Busby's family's long-term tickets are going to be cut. They took away the Alex Ferguson position and cut a revenue stream to him. Wow. I mean, that's just they're a mess. They're a mess, which is beautiful. Love to see it. An unusual one for Chelsea. Chelsea talking about actually getting players out of the club. This is unusual. Talk to us about this.
Chelsea talking about getting players out of the club. However, no talk yet, like last summer, they're bullying him to go at the leisure centre or train at Easy Gym or anything like that. But who knows what could develop. Sweeney Todd could bring us a bit of January business and something to talk about, because just in case down this, Maresca himself has talked about certain players departing, some that we suspected anyway. But if you just look at like the quotes there are players, unfortunately, that didn't play a lot to all competitions, like Chilwell, like Chuck Wemmicker. They are the first to say they want to leave. So there's going to be business going out that way. But even bigger names, Trev, Nkunku, he's not playing at all, is he, in this first? He's very much in that Conference League sort of side. And there will be takers on the continent, if not the Premier League for him. Dizazi is clearly up for sale, even though they played him the other day, which was just bizarre. I don't know if that was to incite interest, but they are offering him abroad. And then the other one, Trev, that he's even talked about. I mean, have you ever heard of an American billionaire coming over to our shores, buying a stately home named Dewsbury Hall, and wanting to flog it 6 months later because he's got no interest in it whatsoever? Even Maresca's talked about this. I mean, genuinely, they could save our show in January with multiple departures. And then if they make these multiple departures, they could sell the car park back to themselves, sell the leisure centre back to themselves to do business. Do you know what I mean? They have potential to make our January. So I am pleased to say, despite how well they're doing, all eyes are on Chelsea and all eyes are on Sweeney Todd in January.
Again, and listen, let's not mince words. Since we started doing this show, Chelsea have been an absolute staple for us when it comes to content. And if there is now going to be a property section, I'm looking forward to that as we move some country piles around the place. That's interesting. That's those quotes from Maresca are really, really interesting. We've gotta say. And the Nkunku thing you mentioned, wasn't Nkunku the one that we were looking at, the one that was being recommended when Kloppo said, "No, I want Darwin." I think he was. Now, I think he's 27 now, 26, 27. Maybe he's not for us anymore. Who knows? Other clubs doing bits, Newcastle and City. Let's talk about both of those clubs before we go back to a couple of Fulham stories and a couple of new manager stories. But let's go Newcastle and then City with the two stories we've got there.
Yeah, Newcastle want to do business, and they're very much looking, as a lot of sort of stories are coming out from Holland. Bakayoko, the PSV winger, once linked with us. No, I don't think that was ever a realistic link. It felt like agent talk, but they are looking for reinforcements. Their big issue, and Eddie Howe said this, it was not us saying it, as we know, Trev, PSR, they'll probably have to sell to buy type of thing, because of all their issues. And therefore, we get into all the sports washing, Saudi crying and all that. That's just a fact, in that regard. Newcastle's big issue is everyone they want to sell, not really worth much, are they? I mean, the latest deal they've got that's set to complete is Almiron. Do you remember the Paraguayan right winger who plays on the left? I mean, Trev, he looks like he's going to the MLS for about 8 million quid. I mean, what's that going to do? Do you know what I mean? Like, absolutely nada. Dubravka's got interest, but Nick Pope's now got his injury, so Dubravka's in the team. And even if they sell Dubravka, 4, 5, none of this is going to make a dent at all. Now, I know people, as funny enough, just as we said it, someone's put it in the chat, someone's going to say, what about Bruno for us? What about Newcastle do not want to sell these players. Just to be clear, they do not want to sell them in January. However, these are two to keep an eye on in the summer. And just to be super clear, the info we've got over the last week is Isaac has been clear with Newcastle. If you don't get, or we don't get, Champions League football this summer, bye-bye. He has got no interest in signing that extension at all unless they put that clause in there, which is why it's dragged on and it looks like it's passed now. So I just think Newcastle could well be in that situation of can't get any players out, so can't get any players in the nicest way. But in the summer, Bruno, whose agent is very active, by the way, and Isaac, if they don't get Champions League, I'm surprised if they stay there. That is our info. And then City, as you mentioned, I can't even call them, this is beautiful, I can't even call them the 115ers anymore. They're the 130. They want players. They looked at Bruno, can't get him. Newcastle said no. Looked at a few others, looked at Zubimendi, that's a no. Asked Palace about Wharton. I think Palace will absolutely pull their pants down in January to get that done. Like in terms of that. We know Pep wants reinforcements. We know they need reinforcements. This is beautiful. Every agent pretty much is saying one of two things to City. Number one, no for January until 130 is resolved either way. Or number two, we want big money and we want 130 court case clause in there as well, which obviously... City, even City aren't like as much money they got to throw away. They're not utterly stupid in that regard as well. So isn't there almost a beauty, whatever anyone thinks, that Manchester City are so far off us? It's beautiful to watch, but also they might not be able to reinforce in January because of the 130 situation. Isn't there just a sweet science to that element? Let's just say that.
That is a beautiful thing. That is a beautiful thing, and if you don't revel in it, maybe you're missing out on the joy of Schadenfreude, because it's an underrated pleasure. We'll talk about Bournemouth, Fulham, and Palace, who are doing bits before we finish out with a bit of chat about two new managers.
Yeah, I know they're not the sexiest club. Bournemouth, especially, they do good business, and they do sometimes buy, invest in players, and then sell them on at a good price. I'm probably pronouncing this wrong, but Sabiani, who's done very well, the centre half there, very much liked by PSG, was set to move on Skriniar as well. So if it's not January, it could be. Don't be surprised if that one happens, because no disrespect to Bournemouth, they've done brilliant this season, but the chance to go, one's a bigger club than the other, whatever you think. Let's not pretend for 1 second. Palmeiras, Andreas Pereira. Do you remember that little shit that didn't get the red for going down the back of Ryan Gravenberch that time? Hopefully he does fuck off back to his homeland and Palmeiras. So yeah, they are very much interested in him. And then a player I've not even heard of, but I love his look. They call him Beastie, apparently it's pronounced, at Benfica. Trev, he's got a haircut like me, but imagine I had a massive ginger beard that looks like I'm chewing a squirrel. That is exactly what this guy looks like, a kind of defensive midfielder. He might be totally shit, but I just want to see him in the Premier League because he looks like he's been living out in the wild for a few years. So there's your sort of mid-table update if you want it.
I love it. Let's talk about the 2 new managerial arrivals in the Premier League. Counts as transfers.
Yeah, it does. Wolves, Victor Pereira, they've paid that release clause, haven't they? So he's there, so we'll see how he gets on. I do think Wolves will get out of it. Like, some people call me crazy, but they've got some talented players there, Wolves, like Nori, Kuna especially. If they get a tune out of them. And by the way, you think you didn't get it? Well, they just beat Leicester 3-0. I know people say Leicester are crap, but don't be surprised if you see Wolves getting a few points that way. And then, yeah, Rich, to be honest, I think you could put Big Sam, Jurgen, Pep, and have Fergie as the director of football. It ain't going to save Southampton, but he's going to have a crack for 18 months, isn't he? And we'll see what happens in the Championship.
I love the way he just threw Sam Allardyce in there in that elevated company, just because why not? But yeah, I did love the period of time there where he was the, in case of emergency, break glass and get Big Sam in because reasons. We'll finish off then with a little look around Europe. A previous Premier League player, Dele Alli, might be on the move. That's a career that just stalled so badly. It'd be interesting to see what the next step will be. I know you've got a Leon story as well, because I think they're in a spot of bother. And let's finish then with some Barca chat, because why the hell not? I don't think we've any, unless I'm mistaken here from looking at your breakdown, I don't think we've any Saudi news to finish with. So we'll go in the order that you have.
No, I've got to be honest. I probably should have held it back because we had Bayern galore with all their contracts and negotiations. And young Ben looked at me when I said it's like dynasty and Avide at Bayern, like I was talking in. I was like, just ask your mum when the show finishes. You'll be fine, mate, type of thing to bring a reference to it. But yeah, Europe. I mean, this feels like a football manager style thing. Dele Alli, who everyone knows his story, so, good luck to the lad. He's set to go and train with Cesc Fabregas at Como in Serie A, so hopefully something comes of that, and it works out for him that way. The Lyon fire sale is starting, despite what John Textor is trying to deny. I mean, I don't really know this player, but gift Orban, and I don't think they're quite gifted him to him. They're trying to get top dollar from Hoffenheim, but they are starting that. Cherki and the big ones will have to see what happens around that. Barcelona, Trev, loved this because I thought, what are they going to let us down? No. Just to get in contact with that Barca journey who gave us the last thing about voting, and he said, it's juicy. The Olmo situation is still to be resolved. And if they can't do it by like mid-January in that Spanish cut-off, Olmo might have the right to cancel his contract, Trev, because they've not got it back to like nightclub style, 1 in, 1 out, and balancing the finances. Laporta's still trying to do things, but there's that. Frenkie de Jong as well, a well-known name, a not well-liked player. And the update we got is now he is hated by Barcelona fans for 2 reasons. Number one, he will not write off the wages that are owed to him. Because, why out the goodness of your heart wouldn't you just write off the 8 million quid or whatever it's owed to you? Surely everyone would do that. So yeah, obviously he's hated by Barcelona fans. The second thing is he's clearly not particularly liked by Hansi Flick. And even in last night's game, when they needed to bring on a midfielder, they brought on their 5th choice centre-back to play in midfield ahead of De Jong. Now, the journal we spoke to said this is like building into an unhappy situation for anyone. And Barcelona will now accept a nominal fee, if you want to call it that, to get De Jong off the books. And De Jong would probably accept that. But here's the kicker. Before Frankie will disappear out the door, where's that 8 million quid in wages you owe me type of situation? So it'll be interesting to see what develops on this. But everyone knows the name De Jong. It's a big name player in the world of football. Hated at Barcelona currently. So just keep an eye on him and all for January.
Now, we're nearly at a position where we can take it home, but we didn't mention one, and I've seen a few people shouting about it in the comments, and I was going to just bring it back here at the end because it's kind of Liverpool adjacent. So if you read any newspaper, if you watch any TV program, if you listen to any podcast or radio show, you will be patently aware that Arsenal are favourites for the title, you see. And Arsenal are absolutely the only ones who are in with a shout. Every pundit says it. It's getting kind of weird. But regardless, let's just leave it at that. Let's let them off to do their thing. If you're surprised by agendas and media at this stage, you're either very young or very slow. So I can't help you either way. Grow up or cop on. So we look at it now and we see all this nonsense going on. But if Arsenal are realistically the second best team in the country at the moment, which I guess we have to say they are, right? We give ourselves that title as we stand in our current form. City have fallen off so spectacularly, we couldn't have expected that bonus. So Arsenal now have their most sort of fated attacker, Bukayo Saka, out for what Arteta called many weeks. Now, I don't know what that means. You don't know what that means. And if anyone's believing Mikel Arteta when he's talking about injuries, again, see the two conditions previously. You're very young or very slow. Don't ever believe a manager when they're talking about injuries. But let's just take it at face value that he's out for a while. Do you see panic going on? Because God knows, Mikel hasn't spent much money,
It's just... I just find it hilarious. I mean, he made those comments today in his press conference saying that we've got the thinnest squad. I mean, anything happen. And some people, which I love, brought back his comments from the summer where he's like, no, we've signed, we've reinforced, we've got Calafield, we've got us. So like you said, if you're just that naive, just look at the comments he made in the summer, which are now contradicting everything. This is a beauty to it. Because Arteta has spent so much money in recent years, Trev, they are right, the journos are telling us, right on that PSR line, that FFP line. So they don't have the money to go and cover that. Or they'd love to be able, if they had their summer sort of budget again, etc., to go for an Isaac. But they just do not have it. It's that simple. If anyone's in doubt of that as well, they needed another attacker. Who did they get? Raheem Sterling, who wasn't wanted by Chelsea on a loan for nothing, because that's all they can afford. And even today, Arteta said, no, I've got confidence in the squad I have and can do this. It's no, Lego head. It's because you can't go out and spend another 50 million or 100 million or anything like that. That's exactly what it is. And if you believe anything different, you are probably one of those Arsenal fans that I believe appear to just shout at the moon or enjoy public executions based on social media, that type of character. So that is all I can really summarize there. But I think there's a beauty to this that I don't see Arsenal doing any business unless that can force a few people out, which he likes to try and do now and again. But yeah, they may just be snookered, Trev.
Dell reckons it's Rashford in. Solves everyone's issues, possibly. Although can they pay him? I don't know. It's an interesting one. We'll keep watching, and of course, we appreciate your interactions. Like I say, I can only see so many of them. I apologize if I don't address everything that's said in the comments. We're trying to keep a few plates spinning here at the same time and give you a show that's worthwhile. Dave, I'm going to give you the last word, but I will say we'll probably be back soon after what you flagged up there, the January 2nd. Now, if something happens before that, obviously we will go. But maybe we should wait till that window of time is spent. Now, it's only the 23rd now, but we've got the Christmas stuff. Nobody's going to be doing anything much. So we could maybe say we'll aim at doing one to see if that actually panned out. And if anything happens in the meantime, of course, we'll jump in. But as ever, I want to leave the last word to you, my man.
I hope at the turn of the year, Trev, we're doing a show where it's probably not going to be about transfers. I think we've set the scene for that. We can't pretend on that. But we are reliving people's excitement. We are getting 50-year-old men thinking about when they first read Jilly Cooper's Riders and that excitement. When 25-year-old boys discovered their first FHM back in the day type of thing. We hope we are bringing you renewals of elite stars, because that's exciting, isn't it? Still, we can talk about it. And yes, you can jump on. We should have had this done by now. Yes, but if we get them done, are you pretending you won't be excited or, rejoicing on that day to sell it? So that is what we think we'll be bringing you. Probably a bit of Chelsea or the other side, but we don't want to lie to you. As Trev said, we ain't going to BS you. We're going to be surprised if we're talking about serious things for Jam.
But who knows? And it is the Christmas period and it's the new year and mad things are going to happen regardless of football. This is going to be a mad year, lads. So I would say hang on to your hats across the board. Things are about to happen. And why couldn't football be any different? We'll see. And we'll be there to tell you if anything does. And we'll be there to react if anything doesn't. But I'm glad you saved that Jilly Cooper reference for when I was back on the show, because Ben would have been a bit lost. Fair play. Thanks to Dave for, again, another tremendous amount of info and the research he does. And he does actually do the legwork. He does annoy the bejesus out of people to see, can we get something halfway sensible for you? So I do appreciate it. All I've got to do is pitch up and chat to the man. It's another good one. We enjoyed it. Take care. Talk to you soon.